right. Yeah. No, she got to pick a narrative.
Yeah.
Right. Just crazy though. Audiobook review hard. You hear the guy. Yeah, no, yeah. 100%. You missed that one. I should have just looked into it. Really? He's just like screaming in my head. So those people who think you come to think for the too? No.
There's a whole conversation. I haven't been there. Today's been like my sister. It's like I have seen it already. States don't close back.
Right. I was hoping.
Kids. How are you?
No, I don't know.
I feel like I'm still recovering from our trip to Texas, right? Still trying to get back into to the right group. No, it's been it's 2 weeks, right? It's hard to get back to work. I was enjoying that. Job. Good.
Yeah.
Hello, everybody. Hello. Welcome. My name is Lainey Rose. I'm the events manager here at City Bookshop. It is wonderful to be with you all today, both in person and virtually, if you're tuning in that way. We always have something on the calendar here, and we have been having a great lineup of summer events. Some things I'm personally excited about on our calendar is our upcoming Book Besties speed dating on July 31st. And in August, we're hosting a one-off book club discussion of Yesteryear, which is a buzzy book everybody's been talking about. All the information about our upcoming events and our 14 different book clubs can be found on our website. 14, it's a lot. Who here is at the store for the very first time? Welcome. Everybody else, be on your best behavior so we don't scare them away. Before we get to tonight's event, some housekeeping details. Number one, if you could take a moment to silence your cell phones, we would all appreciate that. Thank you kindly. Number two, if you need a restroom, it's upstairs past the cash registers and the greeting cards. Number three, we will have time for questions tonight for both in-person and virtual attendees. So even if you're watching via Zoom, you can participate. Please put those questions in the Q&A feature so that we can see them and can ask on your behalf. And finally, most importantly, if you still need to purchase a copy of tonight's book, we have those available and we'd be happy to help you out with that. All those copies are upstairs at the register, not down here. They're upstairs at the register, not down here, and they can be purchased prior to the signing line. When I first got the email pitch for Maggie and Arthur's Magic Moment, I was immediately enchanted. I love bringing debut authors to the store to celebrate the release of all of their hard work into the world, and I'm always a sucker for magical academia. In tonight's book, a dangerous spell gone wrong forces the passionate professor of incantations to share tight quarters with her magical colleagues, leading and most brooding alchemists. Delicious to me personally. Our author of the evening is Leslie René, a Virginia-based writer who weaves stories full of magic and yearning. During the day, she's a science writer. The rest of the time, you can find her going to concerts, trying to stitch yarn and thread into something pretty, and playing in the garden with her family. Joining us tonight in conversation is friend of the shop, Mae Bennett, a hopeless romantic who enjoys imagining and writing happily ever afters in her free time. A voracious reader and reviewer of romance books and member of our book club. Reader, I threw something in and then I messed up my. Okay, we're all with me. We're going back into it. A voracious reader and reviewer of romance books while her cat, King Louis, rules on his throne. Please join me in welcoming our authors of the evening. Give them a big round of applause. And keep that applause up.
Oh my gosh. Yay! Thank you everyone for coming. This is so exciting.
I'm so happy to be here. Hi, everybody.
I'm so happy on her behalf. I'm Mae, and this is our wonderful debut author, Leslie. So I'm incredibly lucky since we have been friends for, I don't even know, quite a few years now.
Yeah.
Can you?
Is this on?
Yeah.
Okay, good.
You guys can hear us, right? So it is really cool that I get to be here to be your conversation partner since I think I read the first draft.
You did read the first draft, and honestly, there was nobody else I wanted to ask to do this.
Oh, you have a rule. You're not allowed to make me cry.
I know, I'm
because-
sorry. I teared up there for a second,
Yeah,
and
yeah.
I don't want to cry yet. It'll happen. Oh my God, Laura!
We're not doing well with the emotion already. Oh, I'm so
I
happy.
didn't know she was coming.
It's exciting.
Ah.
Okay.
Okay,
So,
sorry.
guys, we're here to celebrate someone who's not
Wait,
getting
wait, wait,
emotional.
wait,
Oh,
wait.
yes.
I can continue.
Oh,
Okay. So Mae read the very first draft of this book, and she has been part of it from day one. And it's just been really special to go on this journey with her and have her guidance along the way. She has written some of my favorite books, and they're all so good, and you can buy them you can buy Barely Even Friends. It's not up here right now, but it is so good. It's so fun. It's a really sweet romance. And I'm just so glad you're here with me.
My guidance is yes, slutty glasses are awesome and we love men who yearn. So yeah, real deep advice going on here, guys.
All helpful.
Hey, we need more men who are wearing slutty little glasses in the world. And yeah, I'm obsessed with the cover if people can't tell. So to get us started, why don't I know it's always the hardest thing, but I also think there is no one better to describe your own book than you. So, how would you describe Maggie and Arthur's magic moment?
Yeah, sure. So Maggie and Arthur's Magic Moment is about two professors at a magical college who have to work together to banish the deadly spell that's threatening their school. Even though they don't like each other very much, they also have to share a tiny office. And what they don't know, but what you know if you read chapter 1, is that they have already kissed once before at a magical masquerade festival. And the masks are charmed to make them forget that who they were kissing. And so they kind of spend the whole book being like, I kissed this incredible person, but who could it have been? Oh my God, it's the annoying person that I sit next to at work all day. So yeah, that's what it's about.
I still remember reading that scene for the first time, just like screaming and going, oh my God, the masks. And then if you have not been on Leslie's Instagram page, like seeing the fan art that you have from that scene too, it is just incredible of just the electricity that scene kind of sets up the whole book and just the relationship between the two of the chemistry that they have and maybe even don't realize that they have together. So yeah, this book really pulls you in from chapter 1. So
Thank
if you have not read it yet, you guys have some exciting things coming for you. So what was the inspiration for you? Like what pulled you in first? Was it that first scene with the mask, or what kind of had you
No.
the slutty glasses? I'm gonna say this many times, guys. Get excited.
So really the mask scene didn't happen in the first draft. So maybe you read the second draft, because I think that was always in the draft you read.
Okay.
But yeah, that pivotal scene that ends up setting up so much of the story wasn't even around until draft 2. And in draft 1, there was this other, they were still at a festival, but she sees him performing on stage, which like now that's something he would never
like
do.
reaching for on
I
his
know.
behalf, like trying to picture like what's he, like at gunpoint or knife point, anything like
Kind of in the story, kind of, because
yeah.
the whole time she's like, he would never do that.
No.
Yeah.
No.
But I'm really glad that's not where it went.
No, but I kind of just want to read like then just imagining him now. So I expect something in my email inbox later tonight. But yeah,
noted.
Thank you.
But what it started with, the kernel of the idea was really with Maggie's job. So she is a linguist and a translator, and I wanted to write a magic that was about translation and about words, and what if translation was magic. So that's how it started.
That's incredible. And I think one of the things that really stands out to me in this book is the ease that the world building happens. Like, especially fantasy books, right? We don't know what the rules of the world are, right? They're not our normal rules. So you have to have some world building built in, whether that's the exposition from the characters or something. And the way that you just ease into it. Like I never sat there and went, okay, all right, thank you. Let's move this along. And I'm really curious how you approach that, right? Because there's world building involved in any book, right? You have these people that don't exist in this world, whether it's a house or anything, but then you have your rules of magic. You have a school that doesn't exist and this history. So how did you go about doing that? Because they have these incredible backstories. I mean, they mentioned random books, and you have it so incredibly built where there's such an ease to it that I want to learn more, but it doesn't feel forced at all. So I'm curious, like, how you approached writing that.
Oh, first of all, thank you. That was so
I'm
kind.
unbiased, so
That was so kind. I think for me, I wanted it to feel familiar enough
yeah.
that people who maybe don't read a lot of fantasy could get into it, because it is truly like a fantasy romance. There's a fantasy plot line and a romance plot line.
Yes.
And I really wanted it to be a good mix of those two. So I wanted it to feel really grounded, which was the reason I set it in something that looks like our world. So they have computers and cell phones and things like that. But in terms of the world building and just making the world feel rich, that's one of the things that I really love about writing. It's one of the things that I love to do the most. And I like to make worlds that feel lived in, and like you said, there are books they've all read, and there's like a culture baked into it.
Yes.
And that's something that I just really get a lot of joy out of when I'm writing. So it just kind of happens. I don't know how to explain it.
So you just make me want to hate you a little bit more because you're like, I don't have to think about it. It's just really easy.
Not that I
But
need to
no.
think about it, but that it, whenever I have a moment in the book where
Yeah.
things are a little quiet, it's like trying to add something that builds that richness.
Okay.
So, when the characters are talking to each other, is there something that I can layer in here that speaks to this world building
Yeah.
or something like that?
That's nice. And did you have like a way that you were even just keeping track of it, right? Like, because you had just even common phrases that, again, I don't feel like were overused, but were repeated throughout the book, or just different pieces of information, or even keeping the rules straight, right? Of the magic, or how things were going to resolve. So just curious how you went about, or you're just deeply brilliant
No.
and it was trapped. Okay.
No, 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 not
This
not
is
that
getting rude. Now,
not that
now I
I'm
may walk out, but okay.
not that I'm deeply brilliant, but that I had to go back and add things back. Like
Fair.
things that halfway through the novel I started adding in, like
Yeah.
I think like there's a lot of like phrases that they repeat in the book, like they have their own swears and things like that. And I don't think I really came up with those until halfway through like draft 3. So it was like, all right, let's go back to chapter 1 and add
Slide
those
those
back
back.
in.
And they were
So
always
yeah, right. They always existed. I really owe my copy editor a like a drink, I don't know, a meal.
yeah.
Because especially when it came to timeline,
Oh yeah.
she was like, "Hey girl, when did this happen?" And the answer was, I honestly don't know. And so I spent a lot of time, like a lot of time, with a calendar.
I do the same thing when I did my like, because it just didn't make sense.
No.
They're like, this is the wrong season. I went
Right. Yeah, no,
oh,
I mean,
yeah, there are things like seasons.
right,
Darn. Yeah.
right. Or like she'll be like, okay, so she just said the phrase a couple of weeks here, but by my calculation, it's been 3 days.
Yeah. Yeah. Only a few hours have passed. And I'm like, yeah, darn it.
Yeah. Like, 2 pages ago you said it was Wednesday and now it's Thursday, but she said a couple of weeks ago. And I'm like, oh my God. Okay. So yes, I
Yep.
printed out a calendar, and it was so much editing that now that I'm working on book 2, I've been much better about it.
Well, yeah, now that you know to do a calendar, you
Yeah.
have to do one.
I'm like,
yeah.
okay, I know what day it is.
Yep. Time keeps passing.
Yeah.
I mean, at least you could have made up seasons though.
Yeah, she was also I didn't make up seasons, but
Okay.
I could have.
Okay.
She was also
Spoiler alert, guys. There are no made up seasons in this book. I'm sorry.
All the seasons are regular.
Yeah.
But one of the things, oh my God, I lost my train of thought.
Writing the calendar and like the editing process.
Just go on to the next. I forgot.
Okay.
I lost it. I lost it.
Well, talking about the editing or just writing the book,
Yeah.
what is your favorite scene that you wrote that is not a spoiler?
Okay. Well, I'm not going to tell you what it is, because that would be a spoiler. But if you've read the book, then you'll know exactly what I'm talking about. And that is chapter 9. I'm not going to tell you what happens, but you'll know it when you get to it.
I will tell you, having read chapter 9 multiple times, that there were a lot of exclamation points and oh my God and wow and yes. And yeah. So
Yeah.
I'm excited for all of you guys to get to chapter 9. And I see someone now flipping, and I don't blame you, but I also won't lie. Until actually I think you read up to it, I don't know that if you'll get it. Maybe?
She's
Oh,
read.
I don't know. There
She's
you go.
allowed. She's the only one who's allowed to flip through.
Fair enough. Oh, I wasn't judging. I love that you were like, let's go. That was not a judgment. That was like excitement. I was supporting it. Yes, yes. So, but yeah, chapter 9, there was a level of, oh, this is okay. So I'm excited. You know, when you have like a jealousy of someone who hasn't read a book for the first time and they're about to, that is my jealousy of anyone who has not read chapter 9 yet. So I'm excited for all of you. Okay. So we talked about the fact that this is also set at a magical college. So what made you pick this? Because you're starting to talk about, right, her profession for Maggie and things like that. So what kind of pulled you into that, right? Rather than have her going out and being teaching, right? Versus that's she's translating or getting her PhD or just different things like that. What about specifically being at a school and academia, but also in a fantasy world that made you want to set your book here?
Yeah, so I mean, I really love magical academia stories, dark academia, light academia. Like, I think they're all really fun. And I think the college sets up just a really nice environment for a story to take place. There's a lot of politics built into it, and there's a lot of like interpersonal relationships, and there's, but I think most of them out there are about students. And I am just at a point in my life where I don't really want to write about 20-year-olds anymore, and I really only want to write about people in their late 20s and 30s. And so Maggie's 33 and Arthur's 35. They went through grad school and now they're professors. And I think that is also, I am affectionately a grad school dropout. So it's also a world that I kind of miss, and like until I dropped out, really enjoyed being in it. So it was a lot of things. I also just love school and love research, and my day job is science writing, so I just really love talking to and about smart people. And so that was part of it too.
No, there's clearly like a nostalgia. Like you can tell they enjoy teaching and the students and aspects of that. So I think that really comes across clearly in the writing, but I thought it was just a very cool setting too, and created, I think, different aspects for the book and different tension moments too. So I thought that was really interesting. So and I think you're right. There are, I think, more common choices that people for magical academia, whether it's their student or a professor and a student kind of relationship, and where you have these two professors, I thought was really interesting. All right, now it's time to talk about, I love Maggie. I do. I love Maggie, and we're going to talk about Maggie in a minute, but I was very lucky that I got to see the cover very early, and I am obsessed, but I love Arthur. I love this man and his slutty little glasses. I love a man who, is a bit of a grump and, maybe yearns. I don't think that's too much of a spoiler to say.
No.
I love a man who yearns, and he yearns bad. But the sluttiest thing a man can do is wear his glasses. So I have a very hard-hitting question for you.
Yeah.
When you pictured Arthur, did he always have his slutty little glasses?
Yes.
I knew it.
Those were baked in. Yeah, from day one.
No, I just, listen, you cannot imagine Arthur and not, he lives in those glasses. Those are his. And yes. Have you fan cast him?
I'm not good at that, no.
I don't do it either,
Yeah.
but it's just something I have to ask, so I can also picture someone in slutty little glasses. So,
No, I mean, so I will say, like, when I sent over my cover ideas to my editor, there was, of course, a Jonathan Bailey in a glasses and a a Fox Mulder and some glasses.
Okay.
But he doesn't really look like any of those people, but like that's the vibe.
But no, it's a stern.
It's a vibe.
I also was just, even when I was like coming up with the questions for this, I was just like, would we consider him a stern brunch daddy? Like,
Mm,
you know,
I don't know about that one.
because I was thinking of like the Andy J. For those of you who are not aware of the great Andy J. Christopher's Stern Brunch Daddy, I see you nodding, right? The Stern Brunch Daddy sliding scale as well.
Oh, I'm not
Uh,
familiar with that
Oh,
one.
we will have a conversation
Okay.
later, my friend.
All right. Please send that to me so I can
don't
be
think
informed.
slutty little glasses on it, but maybe I should send her a message and we can add to the sliding scale. Like
Yeah.
I think he needs to go. I don't know that he's obviously not the sternest of stern, but the man's a grump. I mean,
He is. Yeah, he is. And like just to talk a little bit about Arthur and his background. So he's a little bit of like, his mother was this really famous professor and he never really considered any other careers, and he kind of gets through research and really has a love for it, but is kind of just going through the motions and then is like accidentally very good at it because there's no really other option, and he just keeps doing it because that's what he's good at. And he's really used to being at this kind of school that has a lot of funding and a lot of money, and everybody does what he asks because he makes the school a lot of money. And then for reasons that are clear in the book, he moves to a small, like liberal, like the equivalent of like a liberal arts college with no funding, no research labs, no research assistants, and he has to be on committees. And he's like, what is
I have
this?
to talk to other
What
people?
is this?
Yeah.
Like what do you mean I have to do all of this other stuff when I just want to be doing research? Um and so it's a growth moment for him for sure.
Slow growth.
A slow growth
Yeah.
moment for him
Yeah.
for sure. But he really has to kind of learn to navigate this new world and realize that like everywhere is not going to fall at your feet and do everything that you ask the moment you ask it. And
Especially
yes,
Maggie.
and sometimes you have to be on boring committees, and that's part of the job. And so yeah, he's a grump because he has to do all this extra stuff.
Yeah, he has his reasons, but we love him anyway.
Yeah.
So he's awesome. But we do love our Maggie.
Yeah.
And one of the things I love about Maggie and just like the choices you made, again, shout out to the cover, but Maggie is plus size.
Mhm.
And one of the things I really enjoyed is that that's not a plot point in the book. There are amazing books out there, by the way. I'm not knocking that choice, by the way. I want to make it clear. I am a person who also wrote a plus size book. That is not a knock, but there are plenty of books that is a plot point, and that is an incredible choice. But in your book, that is not a plot point. That is just Maggie is a plus size woman, and that is just a fact, and that is it.
Mhm.
And I'm just really curious, was that a conscious choice? Was it just, again, similar to, I'm going to say it again, slutty little glasses, that just how you came up with her, or how did that come about?
No, it was a really conscious choice, and I just think it's really important that romance novels reflect the real world, and it's kind of the world that I've always lived in, and it's it's the my reality, and it also hasn't really been a major plot point in my life, so I kind of wanted to see that reflected, where it's not she's loved despite that, or she's on a journey, or she's going to make big changes now that she's in love. No, like I just don't think that's everybody's reality. And it is for some people, but, I have always wanted to write books about people who look and act like real people.
Yeah.
And whether that's Arthur or Maggie, or any of the other characters, like I want them to feel real and lived in, and like they have real problems, and that also I'm really not one of those writers who's like, I'm going to write a book about the hottest man and the hottest woman. Like they are very hot to each other, right? Because they are like obsessed with each other.
Yeah.
But they just look like regular people in my head. Like they look like real people.
They are hot. Please stop.
No, they are. They are. But like because they're in love with each other.
I'm gonna hold this up. Have you seen these two? Oh my gosh.
I know.
But
I
no,
know.
that is
They
why I
are.
love
They are. They are to each other. And the way they describe each other is because they're describing the love of their life. Like, but they look like real people. They look like real people, and I think that's also why I have a hard time with like celebrity fan casts, because I'm like, well, they don't look like celebrities. They look like real people. Like very hot real people, but real people.
No, and I think that that's yes,
Yeah.
no, and I think that that is one of the things I love most about romance and well-written romance books too, is right that they are the most attractive person to each other at the end of the day. That's who cares what anyone else thinks. So, and I think that comes across really well, even when these two maybe don't want to admit their attraction to each other.
They really don't want to admit it.
One especially more than the other. But yeah, so no, I think so. But also I just yeah, I think that cover is incredible. So I think we can also say they're just also probably decently attractive people for, you know, the future fan cast of the I'm leaning towards TV series. I'm curious if you feel strongly of TV series. I'm literally asking this off the cuff now, so I'm sorry. I sent her the questions in advance to be kind, but TV, do you feel strongly of the future TV series or movie that I'm deeply in favor of?
I think it would be nice as a TV series.
Right?
Producers, call me. Movie, I don't care. I'll, you know.
Yeah, you will. She will accept a movie, guys. She will accept the movie.
I think a TV show would be better, but I graciously accept the offer of a film. Thank you.
Limited series or yeah, okay.
Short film, you know? I don't think
For full length feature, thank you. I'll be picky on your behalf. I think we talked about what a chonker this book and worth it is. So I think we need a full.
I agree with
feature.
that.
Yeah.
Short length probably is not going to cut it.
No. We need. There's multiple scenes to the slutty glasses. Come on, he's got to go glasses shopping. There's got a lot going on.
He does not go glass.
No, I'm writing this in my mind, guys. Okay. Thank you. I'm sorry. No, I see people flipping. They're like, did I miss a scene? No. But like in the movie version, we know he probably is. Okay. I'm sorry. I love this book so much. Anyway. So despite there's clearly darker magical elements, right? We know there is a curse and there's reasons that is pulling them together, that they have to work together. You talk about how you also want this book to be cozy, and I really think you hit that vibe so well. I mean, I think that's also a signature of your writing, just in general, which I really love. Like, just there's a sense of comfort to it, even when we get to the parts that have the curse and the different aspects and an excitement to it too of what's going to happen next. How do you go about setting that tone where you're not, right? There are scarier books or right paranormal. Right, there's magic, so I hate to say paranormal, but right, like, but so I want to pick the right word choice, but just a darker element to it. And so, how do you ensure that you are staying consistent throughout the book, that you're keeping your ultimately cozy, romantic tone?
Yeah. I mean, I think this is one of the hardest things about writing this book and this world in particular is finding that right balance. Because if you haven't read it, it is a little spooky. There's some scares in it, and there are monsters. I like to say if you can handle an episode of Buffy the Vampire Slayer, you can handle this book. It's not actually scary, but it does balance darker themes with lighter ones. I think striking that tonal balance is hard work, and definitely something that I work really hard at. And I don't know that I'm always successful with it. I don't know, but
she was, guys. She was.
But I think it is like when things are scary, retreating into like when there's a action in the book and when there are scary moments and when those monsters are on the page, retreating into the coziness on in the world. So for example, there's a scene where they face a banshee in the woods and it's scary and it's action packed, but it's also fun and funny because they're bantering the whole time, and then immediately after they're kind of in this little campsite and it's back to being cozy. They're doing s'mores and things like that.
It's some of my favorite scenes of the book, I'll be honest.
I do love those scenes too. And then or there's another one where Maggie and her best friend face a ghoul, and again immediately we're kind of retreating back to the coziness of Maggie's office, where she has set up her safe space. So I think trying to find that balance of scary thing, cozy thing. But then also just in terms of there are some darker themes. I like to say it's like existential dread with some romance on the side. More romance with existential dread on the side.
Yes, I think that's a lot more.
I got those reversed. But just I think that fantasy gives us an opportunity to confront some of those things that are maybe hard to talk about when we don't have magic out, to back us up. Um, so I even though I write cozy and even though I write cozy stories, I don't think I could ever write them without a little bit of darkness to remind us why the cozy matters.
I like that. I think you even it out very well because I think that's why the cozy is so comforting because you have those darker elements. So I've now had your secret released to everyone, so I'm so sorry, but that makes sense why those darker elements I think even work so much more and why the coziness feels so much more like a hug because we need the hug after the darker elements. So I like that. Now that you are working on book 2, which I will
Yes.
ask her some questions about that at the end, guys, but book 2 we know is coming.
Yeah.
So how has your writing process changed, right? Going from having a book that you've queried and, don't have a deadline for, right? Aren't under contract to a book that you are under contract for. So just how has that shifted for you?
Yeah, I mean, it's so different writing on contract compared to writing your first book because your first book, you spend years with it before anybody else sees it. I think I worked on Maggie and Arthur. Maggie and Arthur was a fast one, but I worked on it for 9 months before I started querying it, which my first book I worked on for 2 years. But so then you work on it for 9 months, and then I got an agent after 3 months of querying it, and then we worked on it again. And so already at that point, that's what, draft 4? And then it goes to your editor and you edit it, and that's draft 5, and then it's ready. I mean, it's so fast. And then you get to book 2 and your editor, who has seen the most beautiful, polished version of book 1, sees the garbage that is draft 1 of book 2.
Not to be clear, I object to anything that describes your writing as garbage, but
it's
unpolished, I will accept. I will accept unpolished.
I don't know. I mean, it really was a mess. I'll just say, like, the last few chapters were bullet points. Like,
unpolished bullet points. Again,
unpolished
not garbage.
bullet points. So it is a very much more vulnerable process, I think, with book 2, and there's also added pressure, right? Because you have readers who are expecting a certain kind of book or, a certain, tone, whatever it might be. It's like, well, now there's expectations. Where before it was just me and my laptop and friends, and so it's been hard. It's a hard transition, but it's also fun. Book 2's been really fun. I'm really excited for the direction it's going in because it's not done yet. But I can't wait for everybody to read it.
I can't either. It's so good what I've read. So
you read the best part of it. The most polished part of it.
None of it is garbage. I just want to be clear, but it's excellent. What about Maggie and Arthur surprised you writing it? Was there a specific scene or a character? Was there just the Easter egg or just something or a side character that kept popping up that just you found real joy in writing? Putting aside kind of Maggie and Arthur, obviously we have major soft spots in our hearts for them, but what else about the book kind of just surprised you or even just learning about your writing process?
Yeah, there's a few different things. I mean, I outline, but I'm really a discovery writer. So I kind of start with a really bare bones, beat by beat outline of, like, very basic stuff. I'm more concerned with character in the sense that, like, I know my character motivations really well when I start. But what I didn't know necessarily was, like, why they were the way they were and why they had gotten to this place. And so what I really loved about writing Maggie and Arthur and what was so fun to discover, because in some ways it feels like I didn't make them up and I just found them and wrote about them.
Because they're real people that live in your head.
They're real
that
people
we're just
that live in
writing.
my head. Yeah. But for me, it was really two things. It was being able to write about a place that means so much to me. So, yes, it is a fantasy novel, but Maggie and Arthur is based on, like, the geography is based on the coast of New Jersey. So, you know, it just the geography and the mid-Atlantic more broadly. Um, you know, the beaches and the land and what it looks like, and the magical forest is based on specific forests and things like that. um so that was really fun to be able to put that in, and that was intentional. Like, I really intentionally put that into the story. But then the other piece of it that was really fun to discover was Arthur himself and his background and where he came from, and writing about a family that looks a lot like my family. So Arthur comes from a blended family. He has a half brother, though they would never use that word to describe each other. And you know, we get to know his, like, former stepmother. You know, like, there's just, it's a kind of complicated blended family that is not my family at all, but is similar to them in some ways. So it was really fun to write about them, and write about all of the, like, beautiful things that come with that, and all of the challenging things that come with a family like that. And also, the characters of his family were just really fun to write. They're a crowd, they're characters, and, you know, and they're the relationship Arthur has with his family is very sweet, and I really loved writing it.
They're very easy scene stealers too.
Oh, totally.
Like they don't have tons of scenes for obvious reasons, but when they're there, again, I think it goes to your ability to have a lot of backstory, or make it clear without info dumping too much, that the shared history of those characters, without, obviously you don't have pages and pages of everything while having so much. So yeah, I have to agree. I think that it really speaks a lot just in the pages that you have there, how much history there is, but also love in that family.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, and I think that one of the things that I really will always want to write about is not just in Maggie and Arthur, but just in all of the different ways of having a family. So whether that's Maggie and her best friend, or if that's, you know, Arthur whose family is split on two different coasts, or, you know, Arthur's brother whose parents are divorced, you know, like, it's I like, there's just so many different ways to have a family and to describe your family, and I really always want that to be in my books. So
yeah, you don't just show romantic love, you show friendship, you show family. Yeah. I agree completely about your writing. All right. What is a trope that you would love to write, but you have not written yet? And that includes the books I've already read of yours that no one else has read.
oh no.
So that counts too. Did I not make that clear? Am I cheating?
No, you might have, and I may have
Okay.
glossed over that.
I should have put more details in my
maybe some
parentheses.
bold.
Okay. Well, then fine.
No,
Fair
no,
enough.
no. I'm gonna think about it.
We can come back to it.
Yeah,
then.
let's come back to it. I'm gonna
Okay.
think about it.
All right. Well, then I will ask now then, what can you tell us about book 2?
Ooh, okay. What can I tell you about book 2? It takes place in the same world. If you are a romance reader, you can probably guess who it's about. But I don't think I'm allowed to say it. So you'll know when you read it.
And you will be very excited when you get those hints that you can start to figure out and hope who it will be. And yeah.
But it is in the same world, and it is a continuation of the story.
And then
a new couple.
And by being in the same world, we may get, I don't know, to see slutty glasses more. I don't know.
You will. And I will say, I think one of the most fun things I had writing book 2 is getting to see these characters from a new perspective.
I had so much fun too.
Oh my gosh, it's so fun because, you know, and I can't tell you who it is, but, you know, just seeing these characters that, like, we knew them through the eyes of the person who loves them most of the world, and then all of a sudden you're seeing them through the eyes of somebody who maybe doesn't always see them in the best light for reasons that will be clear. It was just so fun. It was so fun to write that side of especially Arthur.
Oh, I know. Every time I felt really bad. Again, my really poor contribution as a writing critique partner was just going, Arthur is here. Oh my God. And like, that's Arthur and like exclamation points.
But
So,
he's so he's so annoying in book 2 in a good way. In a
Excuse
good way. In a good way. In a fun way.
you may have words later.
I know.
No, never. You could never be annoying. Okay. I don't have strong feelings about this book at all. I don't know what anyone is thinking. I'm very unbiased, but you should read it if you haven't. There are copies upstairs if you haven't bought it yet. So how do you find time to write on top of having a full-time job and having children?
Yeah, I mean, the first thing that I'll say is that I have the most supportive family in the whole world. Without them, I don't think it really would be possible because they're very happy to have me. Like say I'm gonna go write in my room for hours. Bye. They're very supportive of that. I think also I probably don't sleep as much as I should. Unfortunately. So hopefully one day I'll get to sleep a little bit more, maybe.
I mean, I want you to sleep, but also like we
I
didn't
know.
have this, so
Yeah.
you
It's
know.
worth it.
Oh, I know.
Yeah,
That's why
but
it's like a hard toss up. Sleep,
Right.
but
beautiful book. I know. It was definitely worth it, but I definitely, I end up writing a lot at night. And also I will say like I'm a big proponent of writing on your phone.
I don't know how you do that.
It's much easier in the drafting phase or like the thinking phase because then I can kind of just send out a lot of, just doesn't matter, just whatever thought comes into my head.
I have a friend who wrote like on her phone, like on her kids' hockey practices
Yeah.
and stuff, and I just don't understand how.
Oh yeah.
Like
I will say the big places that book 2 got written were swim practice, taekwondo in the parking lot. Yeah. Also I wrote book 1 when my youngest was a baby. He was an infant, so he was still nursing. And so I wrote a lot of it on my phone when I was like in his room in the dark.
I remember you'd be like, I'm so sorry, someone has woken up. I must leave. Like we'd be like trying to sprint for like 20 minutes and she'd be like, I have to leave now. And we were like, hopefully she comes back.
Hopefully she comes back. Sometimes she didn't.
Yeah.
Well,
you had the correct priorities.
Yeah. Well, and I think it was a little bit hard of a transition with child too, because my first son is an amazing sleeper and we had no problems like sleep training him. And he got up early, but he always slept well. And so, from 8 p.m. to 11 p.m. I was writing. It was very steady and normal. And then as second children tend to do, he doesn't do that. He really, he's not a great sleeper. Still isn't a great, well, he's okay. He's better now. But at the time it was a lot of writing on my phone to do that. Also can't stress enough how hard it is to write a romance novel when you're nursing a baby. I was like, this is like the least sorry, TMI, but most of the people here are friends with me, so it's okay. This is like the least attractive I've ever felt in my life, and yet I have to write a romance novel right now.
I mean, I felt attractive when I was writing, but I mean, like massive sweatshirt, like have not.
Oh yeah, no,
I did not have
it was
that going on either.
unexpectedly challenging, I think, because I was not nursing when I wrote my first book. So so I was like, wow, this is a different experience and I don't want to write this.
We're very
but I
happy
powered through. TMI, I know. I'm sorry, everybody.
This is incredible. All right. I have some rapid fire questions for you. So, what is your favorite trope?
Oh, I am such a sucker for enemies to lovers, rivals to lovers, like hate to love. I don't know. There's just something about that. I think because it really requires the characters like to not only confront their feelings about this other person, but also confront like what made them feel that way in the first place. Like I just think it's so full of so much opportunity for character growth also. And such good like banter and stuff like that. I will say book 2 is friends to lovers. And so
I love friends to lovers and you know this.
I know you do. I have had like, there's some moments where I'm like, oh, they already like each other. Like what? How do I make them, like where's the conflict?
There's plenty of
there is, and so diving into that has been very fun because I'm getting
the different dynamic.
it's a very different dynamic, and it's been a lot of fun to get into that, and so I call Maggie and Arthur my like grumpy book because they're both kind of grumpy, and then book 2 is my sunshine book because they're both like a little bit less grumpy.
I mean, again, on a sliding scale, that's not
On a
hard
sliding
to
scale,
do.
right? Correct.
Yeah.
So they're opposite tropes, so they're friends to lovers.
Yeah.
Yeah,
No, in the best way.
yeah,
Yeah. But they still have very much the same vibes and being in the world. So,
yeah.
if you love this book, you will still very much love book 2. Okay. Favorite romance book, and I give the caveat so you don't feel obligated to mention anyone that you know, but not written by a friend. So, just general favorite romance book.
Favorite. I know that I read these questions before.
We can skip again. This is just rapid fire.
But now it's like I've never read a book in my life.
I
You know?
That's people always, and I have to either list 5 or I'm just
Right.
like no.
Yeah.
So again, we can skip it and come back to it.
Can I name a friend's book?
If truly that is the first one.
All right, let me think about it. Come back to me on.
But you can't name mine because that's just wrong.
Have you read Barely Even Friends by Mae Bennett? Because you should.
Thank you. Favorite romance, hero, heroine, favorite main character. Or love interest is really what I was going for.
Or
there.
love interest. Okay, well, I'm gonna go classic here. I really love, I think a formative viewing experience for me was the Anastasia movie.
Yes, you know my feelings.
Yeah, and so like historical accuracy aside, because it's not that.
Wait, are you?
But Dimitri in that movie, I think was just like a truly like I just really love that movie and can sing every song, but I won't tonight, even though there is a microphone right here, and we could just turn this into karaoke, guys.
All right, I will ask one more question because I saw we are running late, even though we could gab for forever. So I will return back to the question, I will ask one more. Your call. Trope you would love to write but haven't yet.
I'm gonna cheat and name the trope that I am working on, even though you've read parts of it. I'm sorry.
It's all right because I'm also obsessed. We were talking about it for like 20 minutes back there, and I love this book, so I set cheating. I
want to talk about it because for a long time this was one of my least favorite tropes. I know. And I really challenged myself to write it. And the answer is second chance romance. And I think it works a little bit better in a fantasy. Because for truthfully, like so many times I read a second chance fantasy or second chance romance, and there are so many good ones out there, but a lot of times I read it and I'm like, why are you giving this guy a second chance?
No, it's true.
Yeah,
that's what scares me, right? Because you have to explain why they broke up and why they're realistically getting back together in one book, and you're not sitting there going, they're breaking up in about the next 2 chapters later, at like 3 months after the epilogue, or calendar days, maybe 2 days later. It's unclear.
I know it's unclear. it's so hard, and it's so hard to do well, and so it really scares me to write it.
Yes.
I think I am cheating a little bit because in a fantasy world, often the thing that keeps them apart is magic. So it's like, oh, all right, well, magic. That's a little bit easier to explain away, and it's not really either of their fault if magic is not in the way.
Though that like I don't even know that that's like the easiest way to explain it either.
It's not. So. I love that book. I really hope I get to write it one day. So everybody
I need to write it no matter what because I need to
cross your fingers. Yeah. But it is a second chance fantasy about kind of like washed up heroes. So 20 years ago they saved the world, and now they're back together for plot reasons. And
more magic.
Yeah, the magic comes back.
That's a spoiler.
Yeah, it's not. No, it's not. This is on the cover copy. The magic comes back, and they have to get the gang back together for plot reasons. And so, if you were once a hero and chose saving the world over being with the person you love, how do you like come back from that? And how do you build a relationship after that? And can you? And it's a romance novel, so we know they can, but
spoilers, I haven't read it all yet.
Getting there. is tricky.
Oh, it's so good. Oh my gosh. I'm getting shivers thinking about it. Okay, we've talked for so long and we need to give other people a chance to ask you questions. So I will stop asking you questions. So if anyone in the audience or online has a question for our incredible debut author, now is your chance to ask, or I'm just going to sit here and keep asking or saying slutty little glasses again because you haven't heard it enough. So anyone? Yeah. Okay. So we have a question from online that was there a scene from the book that you cut for pacing or other reasons?
I was so lucky with Maggie and Arthur because when I first met my editor, one of the very first things she said to me was like, "What if we add in more magic? Like, what if we add more? What if we add more history that in backstory and just more?" And I was so grateful for that because I had heard throughout the querying process, like, what if we cut this? What if we make this shorter? What if we move chapter 9 earlier? Um, and I didn't want to do that. And so when I talked to my editor for the first time, I was just like, oh my God, she gets it. Like, she gets it. She wants more of it, not less. She doesn't want me to make these big fundamental changes to the story. So the answer really is no. I don't think that's going to be true for book 2, to be quite honest. There is already a scene that I have to cut that I don't want to. But scenes. Oh,
That's what pre-order incentives are
Yeah.
that go out and then we can all enjoy
And
them
actually,
again.
now that I've said all of this, there was something I cut from book 1, but it was not really a scene. It was like an extra thing at the beginning, and I'll just tell you guys because I'm not gonna like make it a pre-order incentive. We talked about doing that, but we ended up not doing it. I had in draft 8 or something added in a at the very beginning that Arthur had done an interview way before he and Maggie got together where he talks about how like cool her magic is and how cool like her research is. And then Maggie had cited his research in one of her papers. And so there were like these two kind of, extra pieces at the beginning where like the reader already knows that they are the ones who kiss. It's not a surprise that they kissed each other. But this kind of gave a clue that like, oh, they also respect each other professionally. And my editor made the very smart call that that's one of the fun things about the book is kind of finding that out along the way, that really, oh, this whole time they also respect each other's work and research. So I think that was really the smart call, but I did really love the little like citation. It was fun. I got to write like a little bit of one of Maggie's papers, which is so dorky, but I was like, I got to write a fake research paper, guys. Like,
That's incredible.
with full citations and everything.
I hadn't seen when I was reading my arc, I hadn't seen that you had put, I don't think this is a spoiler, a glossary at the end. And I thought that was so cool, right? That you had to like come up and define your term. Like,
Yeah,
that was incredible.
That was really fun to do. My editor also asked me to add in a glossary. And that I feel like so many of the fantasy novels that I read as a kid had glossaries, and so that felt like a fun callback to that. And also because so many of the people hopefully who will be reading this book maybe haven't read a lot of fantasy, it's really there to kind of help hold their hands through it and guide them along.
Yeah, no, I do think this is a good intro fantasy book if you have not read a lot of fantasy light,
Yes.
cozy fantasy. Other questions, guys?
New music that's come out that's like bringing really good.
Yeah.
So we have no. I totally forgot during mine too. What art, so books, movies, TV shows, is bringing you joy right now?
Yeah. The number one thing that I have been so obsessed with this summer is Widow's Bay, the TV show. I loved it so much.
I've not seen it yet. I'm sorry.
Oh, that's okay.
Okay.
I mean, it was just if you like things that are a little bit spooky and a little bit funny and about family and friendship. Honestly, it just really fits in with my vibe. And but I loved it so much. Like I just think it was so good. So if you haven't watched Widow's Bay yet, please watch it. Yeah.
No, I've heard about it. I will add it.
Yeah. Add it to your list.
That's a good question. Other questions, guys, or another online question? Yeah, we can do that, and then we'll go to the online one. So, what was your? So the question is, because Leslie worked in publishing in a past life, is there anything that you are going, oh my God, whoa?
Yeah, I mean, so much of it. I think maybe all of it. I don't. I used to work in sales in publishing for. At the time, they were an independent publisher, but they've since been bought by one of the big five. So I worked at Workman with Lauren, and I worked in the sales department. And so it's just so different being on this side of it and seeing everything, because for me it was, I got the book after it was done, or when it was just a few months out from publication, and that's when my job took over, and so it's been really interesting and fascinating being on this side of it, and I think also like has and I think all authors feel this way, but like I just know how hard everybody in publishing works, and often for very little money. At least it was when I was there, and I'm sure it's still that way. So I am just so grateful to everybody that I talk to, and everybody that I interact with at the publishing house, because I know they're all working so hard. So yeah.
I think we had an online question. So the question is, what would the perfect setting or atmosphere be to read your book?
That's a great question. I think that it is a perfect like summerween book. So if you're not familiar with Summerween, it was created by Alex Hirsch on Gravity Falls. But just the idea of like celebrating Halloweeny things in the summer. So I mean, you think about it, like we watch scary movies in the summer and things like that. We're telling ghost stories around the campfire. It makes a lot of sense. But so Maggie and Arthur's Magic Moment takes place in the summer, but there is this dangerous magic called a pall that is hanging over them quite literally. And it one of the things it does is it affects the weather. So even though it's supposed to be hot and summery and they're supposed to be going to the beach, the weather is very foggy and fall like. So you get the best of both worlds. I didn't have to decide. Wait, so maybe seasons are weird in this book.
Okay, sorry. I guess I confused you all. I didn't
Wow,
think of that.
call
That's
back.
okay. I always got like cozy. I wanted to crawl up with a blanket.
Yeah.
So I was like, was I losing? Okay.
No, yeah.
Okay.
Seasons are weird. But
We've learned something
we
new.
learned
How
something
many months after you like finished like editing?
it's been a while. I last read it in January. No. So I think at the beach in the summer is probably the best place, but it's also really good for that transition into fall. So, when the fall nights are getting cool, but the days are still hot, perfect time. Coincidentally, that's what time it is right around the corner. So, now that everybody has their copy, perfect time to read it.
Definitely. Do you have one more question?
So obviously in the book you put a lot of your thoughts and ideas and you created this story. So did you learn anything or in developing your characters in the story, did you walk away with like a new lesson or something that maybe you included there but like it really struck with you again?
So in creating the story, and correct me if I'm saying this wrong, in building it, did you walk away with any kind of lesson or realizing something in writing it?
Yes, from a very technical standpoint, I learned a lot about mythology and things that I was pulling in that way. But I don't think that's quite what you're asking. I think you're asking more about personally. And I think for me, it was more like some of the stuff that I put in there that maybe I was working through and didn't realize I was working through, because I think that happens to all writers. And Arthur's journey in particular, where he is very much, you know, kind of entrenched in this world of academia, kind of thinks that's what he always wants to do, and then finds himself being very unfulfilled by it. And throughout the whole book, he thinks that it's related to some personal things that he has going on, but he spends a lot of time kind of looking in and realizing that that's maybe not where that's coming from. And so I am a person who has had many careers and done many different things, and had many different ideas of how things would pan out, and they didn't always. And so it was when I really sat down and tried to figure out, like, okay, like, what do I need to be happy in a career? And what do I need to be happy in what I'm doing with my time to feel fulfilled? And so it was interesting to kind of like revisit that. Those were conversations I had already had and kind of led me to where I am here. But it was really interesting to revisit that in a different character, like through a character. And maybe something I wasn't necessarily like planning to put on the page, but that came out through Arthur anyway.
It's really nice. Well, I think that is all the time that we have. So I really want to thank everyone for coming out and supporting the incredible Leslie. So, yeah.
You're so good. Thank you all for being here, and thank you to our virtual audience for joining as well. We love you too. We're gonna take a moment